Hello students, in previous part we have understood the structure of the spinal cord. Spinal cord is about 45 centimeters in length and in males, and it is about 43 centimeters in females. It is 2 centimeters thick and it is 35 grams in weight, and it is protected by the 3 layer of meninges. Now we will understand the transverse section of the spinal cord. If we take a transverse section of it, it looks like this. It is divided into two different parts, or two parts, with the help of the fissures. The fissure which is there on the dorsal side, the upper one is the dorsal side. The fissure which is there on the dorsal side is called as the dorsal fissure, whereas the fissure which is there on the ventral side, the lower side, is called as ventral side. The fissure which is there on the ventral side is called as the ventral fissure, and it divides the spinal cord into two parts, two lateral parts. These are the lateral sides. This is the dorsal side and this is the ventral side. Now, as we have discussed before, that the spinal cord has the white matter outside and grey matter inside. Now, the grey matter here in the spinal cord, it has a shape of English alphabet H, or it is also called as butterfly shape. So this shape you can see here, this H-shaped structure, this is actually the grey matter, and whatever is surrounding it, that is the white matter. So this grey matter is shaped as the H alphabet in English, and it is also called as butterfly shape. It has projections outwards. Those projections are called as, the ones which are on the dorsal side are called as the dorsal horns, and the ones which are on the ventral side are called as the ventral horns. So these projections are called as dorsal and ventral horns. So the projections also they project out of the spinal cord, and when they come out, they are called as, the ventral one is called as ventral root and the dorsal one is called as dorsal root. From these projections, the nerve fibers, they enter, and here the white matter, it is divided into parts with because of the H-shaped structure of the grey matter. So the white matter which is on the lateral sides is called as the lateral funiculus, whereas the white matter which is on the dorsal side is called as dorsal funiculus, and the one which is at the ventral side is called as ventral funiculus. So this H-shaped grey matter, or the butterfly shape of the grey matter, divides the white matter into 4 different parts, or 4 different regions. The one which is on the lateral sides is called as the lateral funiculus. The one which is on the dorsal side is called as the dorsal funiculus, and the one which is on the ventral side is called as the ventral funiculus. And there is a thin membrane which divides, or which reaches the center of the spinal cord. This membrane is called as dorsal septum. It divides the spinal cord into 2 halves. Now, there is a small opening at the center of the grey matter, or the center of the spinal cord. This is called as the central canal. Opening like structure you see here, that is called as the central canal. And this central canal is lined with ciliated columnar cells, and these cells are called as ependyma cells. Now if you we draw a bigger structure, it will look like this. This is the central canal, and there are columnar cells inside it. It is lined with columnar cells, ciliated columnar cells, and they have cilia, or hair-like structure on them. These cells are called as ependyma cells. These are lined in the inner side of the central canal, and the area where these grey bonds or bands are formed, grey matters bands are formed, the area which covers the central canal. The 2 areas we are talking about, this upper one and the lower one, here there are the bands of grey matter, and these bands are called as dorsal gray commissure. The one which is on the dorsal side, upper side, is called as the dorsal gray commissure. Whereas the one which is on the lower side or ventral side is called as ventral gray commissure. And here this is the structure of the, or this is the transverse section of the spinal cord. Spinal cord, it has the white matter outside, grey matter inside. The grey matter is shaped as the English alphabet H, or it is also called as butterfly shape. This butterfly shape divides the white matter into 4 parts or 4 regions. The lateral regions are called as the lateral funiculus. The dorsal region is called as the dorsal funiculus, whereas the ventral region is called as the ventral funiculus. And this grey matter has projections which project outside, and those projections are called as horns. The ones which are on the dorsal side, the 2 horns which are on the dorsal side, are called as dorsal horns, whereas the 2 which are on the ventral side are called as ventral horns. The dorsal horns are made up of sensory fibers, whereas the ventral horns are made up of motor fibers. The sensory nerves enter through the dorsal horn, and whereas motor nerves, they enter through the ventral horn. So this is the structure or the TS of the spinal cord. Now the function of the spinal cord is reflex action. The function of the spinal cord is reflex action. Reflex action are nothing but a quick, automatic, involuntary and unconscious actions brought about when the receptors are stimulated by external or internal stimuli. Now, for example, hammering of hand at the site of mosquito bite. And another example, moving away your hand quickly after feeling the prick of a thorn. Now, reflex action means the actions which are taken involuntarily, unconsciously, those are called as the reflex action. When the receptors get stimulated with the by the internal or the external stimuli, at that time whatever actions are taken by us, those actions are called as reflex action. For example, if you see a mosquito bite, you just hammer your hand on it, isn't it? So that is the reflex action. Or if you feel a prick of a thorn, if you get pricked by a thorn, you suddenly move your hand away from it. So that is a part of reflex action. That is the reflex action. So the function of the spinal cord is reflex action.